Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win. We're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we're revisiting Valor Sader because it's the Season 22 starter set for the Crusader. So, for those of you who don't remember Valor Sader, 2-piece bonus basically gives you a 100% increased damage for 5 seconds when you cast Fist of the Heavens or Heaven's Fury. 4-piece bonus, whenever you hit with Fist of the Heavens and it creates a stack, you get damage reduction up to 50 stacks. The 6-piece bonus says, whenever you cast Heaven's Fury or Fist of the Heavens, you do 20,000 increased damage. We're also going to be using Captain Crimson on here because Captain Crimson, I should say, increases the amount of damage and defense that you get based on the amount of cooldown, and it's all about cooldown. So basically, you're going to use Fist of the Heavens, Shield Glare, Akarat's Champion because it allows you to do a lot more damage, Laws of Valor because it allows you to attack faster, Heaven's Fury because that's one of the major sources when you go to get a large mob, and pretty much these are going to be the abilities you want to use. And here in my KNOX cube, I go a little bit different there, as you can see. If you need a more in-depth description, the armor set build is available in the description via link to Icy Vein, so definitely make sure to check that out if you're somebody that needs to see things a bit more on paper as opposed to visually. I'm going to do a couple of greater rifts here. We are going to start at, I would say, probably a greater rift 60, 65, 70, and 75. One of the good things about Valor Sader is that it's a set that is all about zoning, which means you pretty much attack at a distance. Most of the time, you're going to be wanting to cast Fist of the Heavens and Heaven's Fury. If you are more the type of person that likes to go in your face, up close and personal, you're probably going to want to check out the Bombardment Crusader build that's available on the playlist. That is not your starter set, though, and it will take you quite a while to particularly secure those pieces of armor. So what you're probably going to want to do if you're playing a seasonal journey is you are going to want to complete your Chapter 2, 3, and 4 seasonal journey chapters so that you get the Hadrid's Gift, which will allow you to get all 6 pieces of the Valor Sader armor. And you pretty much will want to farm for Bombardment Crusader and probably swap out, as that looks like it's the S-tier armor to go to in particular. If you do decide to stick with Valor Sader, keep in mind that you're going to have to farm for the Captain Crimson set. And if you're playing seasonal, it's going to take a while before you're able to get the plans because you have to wait for them to drop from goblins, and that's going to be a lot of farming through bounties even to particularly secure the plans to be able to do that. So keep that in mind, as that's going to be quite a bit of farming on bounties to be able to accomplish that. Particularly, this armor works better when you use it in conjunction with Captain Crimson set. If you're not using the Captain Crimson set, you're probably going to see a significant decrease in power because obviously the cooldown reduction is what gives you pretty much a large source of your damage output. So for all intents and purposes, what you're going to want to do whenever you're in a greater rift is pretty much always keep your Akarat's Champion up whenever possible, so definitely keep an eye on its cooldown. And then you're going to want to cast Fist of the Heavens. Now, based on the 4-piece bonus, you're going to get damage reduction for every stack up to the maximum of 50 stacks. The 2-piece bonus says that you're automatically going to be doing 100% increased damage. Based on what we have in KNOX Cube, we can buff the attack stat of Heaven's, or not Heaven's Fury, but Fist of the Heavens a lot more. I got a bit greedy there, so I took a death, but that's okay. It's not really necessary. I already have the gems augmented. Particularly what you want to go for in your not KNOX Cube, but for ancient legendary gems, or legendary gems I should say, is you want a Bane of the Trap, which unfortunately I accidentally put into augmentation for armor slot, not knowing that I was doing that for one of my Air Crusader builds. So I have to re-augment that gem. But you want basically a Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken, and then you want a Goaka Swiftness, because remember, this is a cooldown set. So the more cooldown that you can get, particularly the better. Particularly you're using cooldown for your Akarat's Champion. That way you can always pretty much try to secure that you get Akarat's Champion. And just based on the amount of Fist of the Heavens that you're going to be casting, particularly on the lower greater rifts, you are going to be doing a lot of damage, and you're going to be attacking a lot, which will allow you to get a lot of stacks of Goaka Swiftness very fast. So that will pretty much almost always secure that you're able to get Akarat's Champion up very, very fast. Heaven's Fury is one of those particular skills that you're not going to really want to cast quite a bit. The only time you're really going to cast it is when you run into a mob that is a elite pack, where they have a lot of HP, and Fist of the Heavens will not one-shot them. Then you pretty much want to cast a Heaven's Fury because you'll do a lot of damage, and most of the time you'll take them out in one hit. It depends on the Greater Rift. If you're in Greater Rift 80, 85, or above, and you're not fully optimized Heaven's Fury, you are going to have to cast quite a few times, probably about 2 to 3 times on average, to be able to pick up the victory. Heaven's Fury is also used for when you're going against Rift Guardians, particularly, and Fist of the Heavens isn't doing a lot of damage. Fist of the Heavens most of the time is going to take you through Greater Rift 80, where you're not going to really have to rely heavily on Heaven's Fury, just based on Bane of the Stricken, just what we put into it, KNOX Cube, because we have a Dark Bright. We also have the belt that buffs the Fist of the Heavens a bit more. Some people opt to use Stone Gauntlets in place of that. I'm not really a fan of Stone Gauntlets on Valor Sader Crusader because I feel it's more important to buff Fist of the Heavens and Heaven's Fury to their maximum potential. As you can see here, this is probably going to be, on average, a 4 to 3 minute clear time. This was not the most optimal dungeon for a super fast and speedy speedrun. Keep in mind, Valor Crusader is considered a S-tier armor. It's because of the amount of speed that it can deal out, because as you can see, enemies pretty much blow up with relative ease pretty fast. Shield Glare, in particular, I think I should need to say, is probably something you're not going to be using until you get to Greater Rift 75, 80, and above. Case in point there, look, I didn't even have to use a Heaven's Fury because the Fist of the Heavens stacks pretty much did their job, and we one-shotted the Rift Guardian with general ease here. As you're going to see here, since I accidentally augmented Bane of the Trap into my Crusader build, I'm going to look for Bane of the Trap to basically level it back up to level 80. I'm going to have to do that offline, obviously, guys, here. But you want basically Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken, and Goaka Swiftness for your legendary gems in your particular builds for Valor Sader. Let's see how quick that clear time was, shall we? Alright, so that was a 4-minute clear time. If we had a bit more optimal particular dungeons set up, where we ran into a lot more elite packs, and maybe if we didn't take that unnecessary death that we did for getting greedy, potentially we can have a 3-minute clear time. Sometimes this armor, ironically, will get the 3-minute clear times when you're on Greater Rift 70-75, because the mobs are a lot more mobs, and there's a lot more elite packs, and they come to you a lot faster. Obviously, we can't use Steed Charge in this particular set to be able to increase the amount of mobility that we have. Again, that's why a lot of people now have opted to run Bombardment Crusader, because it's actually, in the long run, ends up being a faster speed farming variant for the Crusader than actually the Season 22 starter set, based on all the changes that they did to the Armor of Akan, as well as some of the changes that have been done to particularly Thorns, and particularly the Mortal Drama weapon and Belt of the Trove, which allowed that particular F-tier armor to be able to overcome and become a S-tier armor set. And I will be doing, again, another Bombardment Crusader build variant to show you guys where and how far the armor has progressed since the last time I played it on the channel. Because that's particularly what I'm pretty much rocking for the Crusader when it comes to Season 22. This is not a bad armor, it's just that Bombardment Crusader is, ironically, a lot more implosive now, and you can do a lot more things with it. And it's a lot faster thanks to the fact that you have access to Steed Charge, something you really can't fit into Valor Crusader. I used to have it, actually, on my Valor Crusader set for Season 21. But as you start really messing around with the set, you kind of realize that instead of Steed Charge, you really want Akarat's Champion on here instead, because you just get a lot more damage out of that. So it's kind of ironic, because although Valor Crusader, or particularly Valor Sader Crusader, starts out as a speed farm variant for Diablo, once, I'd say greater of 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, and maybe even a 75, once you get higher up in the Greater Rifts, that starts to not be so much the case, and it starts to lose speed, and then it actually starts to morph itself, ironically, into a push build. So where does Crusader in general stand for the tier list for the season in regards to the leaderboard? Well, that's an interesting question. Crusader has always kind of been on the top 5 of Diablo 3's season leaderboard for the last couple of seasons, ever since Valor Sader was introduced. because that was pretty much the go-to armor for for your seasonal journeys when it came to Diablo 3 if you wanted to get high up their leaderboard placement. We're already starting to see that is becoming not the case for Season 22. And now it is the fact that people have gone to Bombardment Crusader because it's faster, it's a bit more explosive, and the fact that you have steed chart access, which allows you to move through the map at a lot faster pace and a lot faster speeds, and the fact that you can keep casting it and you get a faster cooldown, pretty much puts Bombardment Crusader on the S tier list in the top 5, and then you would probably have to say Valor Sader takes a back burner. Maybe we drop it to A tier. Maybe we actually even put it as low as even B tier, which is something kind of unheard of for the last couple of seasons. But yeah, it's lost favor because of the fact of how explosive Bombardment is and the fact that Bombardment has the access to steed charge. So I would even say we could go on a limb and say that maybe Bombardment Crusader in particular was a particular problem, pretty much took Valor Sader out of contention for S tier list. So this is a Greater Rift. This was 65, if I'm not mistaken. I'm augmenting the Bane of the Tramp here. And I am going to... Yeah, my bag is full, as everybody can see. I'm going to go back to base. And let's see what the clear time on that was. That's probably 3 minutes. Okay, that was a 3-minute clear time. So for all my complaining guys, you could still get 3-minute clear times on Greater of 65 and above. It's just a matter of how the dungeon layout goes. Again, if that was Bombardment Crusader, however, it actually would be a 2-minute clear time with that armor because you're able to go a lot faster thanks to steed charge access. So right now, I am pretty much trying to see if we can get any ancient legendary pieces that I require. Normally, I jump into a Greater Rift, but we had so much loot this time around that I kind of wanted to just see what we were going to get. Because sometimes, when you are farming in a season, it's always good to swap out pieces for ancient legendary. Like, my chest is not ancient legendary, so I definitely need it. Okay, I'm going to go back into a Greater Rift right now, guys. So that was actually me doing it in real time without any sort of editing whatsoever. That's a rarity on the channel. Okay, so we did Greater Rift 60. We did Greater Rift 65. Greater Rift 65 was a 3-minute clear time, so we're going to do Greater Rift 70. This is Torment 15 equivalent difficulty. So first things off the bat, I'm going to cast my Akarat's Champion. Then I'm going to start going Fist of the Heavens. On average right now, I should be doing about 30k damage as a Crusader thanks to the Akarat's Champion. I'm already at 19k damage naturally based on the way the armor is set up. And remember, I have Finery, which for every gem I'm also getting a significant attack boost. Now, I have flawless Royal Rubies in pretty much all my slots because, like I say, I'm all about power. And as you can see with the way this armor's set up, I don't really have to put more cooldown in here. If I wanted to, I could switch out on my breastplate the Flawless Royal Rubies, and you can do this for Flawless Royal Diamonds. You probably will then get more cooldown reduction, but honestly, as the way this armor's set up, you're not going to need to really have that much cooldown reduction for your Akarat's Champion because Goaka's Swiftness with the amount of stacks that you're going to get is going to pretty much guarantee you're almost always going to have Akarat's Champion access at your... or pretty much access to it at all your availability. Even if you don't, chances are it's only going to be about a 1 to 2 second difference from when it runs out to the time that you're actually able to cast it again. Ooh, I took a very confusing death there. I guess the poison must have took me out, and I don't know, I was actually kind of confused there. I got kind of a little baffled on that one. That was a questionable one unless there was one of the Stalker killer monsters where it automatically one-shots you, and I didn't get to see it because it died faster than it was able to show up. Okay, I got to back away here. One of the problems also I should mention when it comes to Valor Sader, in particular when you're playing it, is you always have a tendency where if you're not careful, you get too aggro and you become too aggressive that if you're not very careful, you can walk into a lot of explosions. Now, keep in mind, Fist of the Heavens allows you to zone, so you're attacking at a distance. So sometimes, based on Fissure, Fist of the Heavens will chain off-screen and will actually kill an elite pack, and you might unintentionally walk into a bombardment of explosions. And pretty much with this particular armor set, you Case in point there's a lot of explosions going off in the distance that I can't necessarily see. You can potentially get squashed by being a bit too aggressive, or you can get squashed from a random enemy like that. So that's kind of thing. If you wanted to get a bit more toughness, you could put in pretty much more gems to get a little bit defense. You would want to probably use a topaz perhaps, or thing. Honestly, for me, it's more about power. I'm not so concerned when I'm in a higher greater rift as whether I'm going to get that 4 chance bonus to augment a gem, because my focus is just getting through the greater rift without happening. So I pretty much level up gems that are already high in level. So whether I do only 3 or if I get the 4, it's really inconsequential. Pretty much you want that same mindset. If you want to augment things with 4-piece chances, then go lower in the greater rift and do it that way, and then you can, you know what, think. Keep in mind when it comes to effective farming in Diablo 3, it's more about speed versus the level that you're doing it. So keep in mind, if you can clear something between 3 to 4 minute clear times, you're going to get a lot more loot doing 20, 30, maybe even 40 runs, depending how fast you're doing them, within an hour, as opposed to just doing maybe 10 to 15 runs in a high greater rift. And maybe if you get lucky RNG, you'll get a lot of loot that way. Sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes you have a higher chance of getting them to drop, but it's just that, a higher chance. So faster and more effective farming is usually speed at lower levels where you could do more runs, and that's pretty much how you effectively be able to do things. Same applies when you're leveling up a legendary gem. The more runs that you could do, and the faster you can, and the more that you can get for a chance bonus when they're on the lower level gems in particular. I'm talking about like till you get to 60. Pretty much you probably want to focus on farming at lower levels where you're doing 2 3-minute clear times in particular. Now, again, this is your Season 22 starter set. So for those of you who are not familiar with how seasons work and maybe are just jumping into Diablo for the first time, whenever you pick a class, it has a specific armor that's going to be its Season 22 starter set. And you get that starter set armor by completing seasonal journeys. Starting on Seasonal Journey 2 and 3 and 4, you will get a Hadred's Gift, a reward basically, for every chapter that you complete. So for Chapter 2, you get a Hadred's Gift. I'll give you 2 pieces. For Chapter 3, another Hadred's Gift worth another 2 pieces. Chapter 4, the last remaining 2 pieces. You are always, keep in mind, always guaranteed the full starter set. Only thing you're not guaranteed is for ancient legendaries. I repeat, not guaranteed to get ancient legendary rolls for it, which is why then to augment particular armors and to get them higher in attack stat value, you're going to have to farm multiple greater rifts to be able to re-roll for armors and to get better armors pieces that are ancient legendary. So don't get discouraged, but definitely at the start of your season, once you have your Hadred's Gift, make sure whatever particular pieces you have that are not ancient legendary, start focusing and start looking for ancient legendary pieces of that. Then, obviously, you want to focus on getting your weapon, which is Fate of the Fell. You're definitely going to need one. Preferably, if you can, get an ancient legendary version of that. Unfortunately for me, with these demonstration purposes, I have yet to roll an ancient legendary of Fate of the Fell, which is kind of unfortunate. I'd have to do a whole separate method of farming for that. Something that I'm going to teach you guys later in a future video as to how to farm for an ancient legendary without having to go through greater rifts. There is a method for that. It is a bit more complicated, but it also fits into bounty farming, which is something you're going to be doing a lot of in a Diablo season. So now we're on Greater Rift 75. As you can see, not really that much of a difference, but based on how the elite packs are starting to come along, I am able to start clearing through Greater Rift, ironically, a lot faster. Why? Because there's a lot more elite packs, which gives me a lot more orb opportunities, and the mobs are being way more aggressive, and I'm seeing a lot more of them. So ironically, as you get higher up in the Greater Rifts, probably your clear times are going to go down, which usually for armors is vice versa. So that's one of the benefits to running Valor Sader as a Crusader for the season. Once you do get your ancient legendary pieces of your armor, and once you do get the weapon that you need and the shield, remember you need a Shield of Fury in particular for this particular thing. The next thing that you're definitely going to want to focus on then would be getting the Captain Crimson particular pieces that you need. Again, you need to preferably get them ancient legendary value. Stats on your armor for this particular set are important. On your helm, you want to have a high crit hit ratio. 6.0% preferably. If you could get crit hit rate damage on your helm, that is great. If you could get an attack stat on it, that would be great too, because that would help you out. But primarily, the one stat you definitely want is 6.0% crit hit ratio on the helm for this armor. For the gloves, you want crit hit ratio 6.0. If you can also get crit hit rate damage 50% or as close as you can get to it rolling, that works in your benefit. Ideally, but this takes a lot of farming and a lot of RNG, if you can get attack speed 7.0 or better, I think on the gloves the highest you could get is 7.0 if I recall correctly. 7.0 attack speed, 50% crit hit rate damage, and then crit hit ratio is 6.0%. That would be the optimal glove set that you need. Also, you definitely will want to make sure that that's an ancient legendary piece so you can augment it. So, ideally on your glove, that's pretty much what you want to strive for, because that will give you the maximum output of damage possible. On your rings, where you can get crit hit rate damage, definitely go for it. Obviously, on pieces where you're not focusing on crit hit ratio and you don't need particularly vitality, which is kind of a useless thing, go for cooldown reduction. Why? Because the more cooldown reduction that you have, the more damage Captain Crimson does. So this is stuff that you definitely want to look for. Resource cost reduction, yes, it definitely could help in this set because you're not going to be spending a lot of Fury. Most of the time, you're not going to be wasting any Fury anyway because you're always going to be getting it back thanks to Fist of Heaven. So here's one of the situations where I actually have to start using Heaven's Fury. As you go higher up in the Greater Rifts and you run into Rift Guardians, you're going to notice that even with Bane of the Stricken, it's going to take a long time to take them down. So what you want to do is you want to cast a couple of Fist of the Heavens and then chuck about 3 Heaven's Fury. Once you're doing Greater Rift 75 and 80, usually this particular method that I'm recommending you use will take out a Rift Guardian primarily within 2 to 3 hits. As you go higher up in the Greater Rifts and you start becoming less optimized, as in you don't have all your pieces augmented with a legendary gem, or you don't have necessarily the most desirable stats in certain retrospects. That was a 3-minute clear time on Greater Rift 75, by the way. 3 minutes and 50 seconds. This is going to be a Greater Rift 80. But keep in mind, as you go higher up and you're not as optimized, the kill time is going to go down, and you obviously have a chance of getting squashed. And another thing is, it's going to take you a lot longer for Rift Guardians. If you see that you're taking a long time to take Rift Guardians down, that is a very clear sign that you need to go back and start re-rolling on stats of your armor, looking to see if you have the crit hit ratios where they need to be in particular. Keep in mind, cooldown, very, very, very important for this particular armor because you are using Captain Crimson, and more cooldown means not only more damage reduction, but the more damage output that you particularly do. Now, in a Greater Rift 80, you're really going to start, case in point here, using Heaven's Fury a lot more. You're going to want to cast a couple of Fist of the Heavens just so you can secure a couple of stacks. After about maybe 3 to 5 stacks, if you see a late pack that's not going down, start using Heaven's Fury. Don't worry necessarily about your meter. You're going to get back that meter very, very, very fast, even when you spend a lot of it. Now, as you can see here, my armor is not got the most desirable stats for defense, so I have to be careful because if I get a bit hyper-aggressive, if I walk into very careless particular situations, case in point where that mob was firing this thing, I will get squashed. Now, in Greater Rift 80, the mobs do a lot of damage and they have a lot more HP, so definitely keep in mind, during your seasonal journey, don't get discouraged if you take a death. Do get discouraged if you're taking multiple deaths. Well, I'm saying multiple, where then you start going in the bar of the Greater Rift where you're in the yellow and you're not going to be able to complete the Greater Rift to get the chance to augment the gems. That is a clear sign that then you're doing something wrong and that you are using on a Greater Rift that far supersedes what your armor is capable of doing. And I say this a lot on the channel, and I've said it many times in the past. When it comes to Diablo III, it's about the journey, not so much the destination. It's about, pretty much it's a marathon, not a race. You're going to be doing a lot of greater rifts. If you're playing a season of Diablo 3, you're going to be doing a lot of grinding and a lot of rerolling and a lot of repetition to be able to get desirable stats, to be able to get to full completion of your seasonal journey. So don't get discouraged. If you see that you're running into greater rifts that you're not able to take down, case in point here, use this particular video as a guide to what you should be striving for. But keep in mind, the Paragon's not going to be there from the beginning. When you're playing Season 22 of Diablo and you're just starting, you start at 0 Paragon, which means what areas should you be focusing on? Crit hit ratio. Definitely you want your crit hit ratio as high as possible. Cooldown has to be maxed out at some point. Obviously, this is a set where you need strength, so definitely you want to invest all your Paragon points into strength. Those are the things you really want to go for in the beginning. Then you start going and basically adding Paragon points to every particular stat. So those are the 3 to focus on the most in the beginning. Strength, cooldown reduction, crit hit ratio. Then start focusing on the other things. Movement speed is also kind of important. But I would say you want to do that after pretty much strength. Because cooldown is really the more important thing, particularly, especially if you're going to be using the Captain Crimson set. Because that alone will be able to give you a lot more mileage with this particular armor. Now, case in point here, it's again their situation. Make sure you maintain Akarat's Champion. Make sure you're casting Laws of Valor. Cast a lot of Fist of the Heavens whenever you run into a mob that is giving you particularly trouble, particularly elite packs. That's probably when you want to start casting your Heaven's Fury. The reason I took a death there, as you saw a couple seconds ago, was because I got greedy with Fist of the Heavens and thought that I could take down every mob that way. That wasn't the case. I had to then cast a Heaven's Fury to be able to do more damage. One of the benefits on high greater risks with Valor Sader, as you see here, is that you, with Fist of the Heavens and the chaining, thanks to the fissure ability, you are able to get high massacre bonuses. And on high greater rifts, high massacre bonuses that you can keep going and do consistently. Case in point here, we're already into the 400 plus kill range with our massacre bonus. That will allow you to Paragon farm a lot faster. So that's the benefit. Valor Crusader is very, very, very good at Paragon farming, especially at high greater rifts. Only problem there is, yeah, you're going to take a sometimes unnecessary death if you're not careful. Alright, so my strategy here is going to be pretty much the same. I'm going to cast a couple of Fists of the Heavens. I can Shield Glare to stun them a bit, and then I'm going to start casting Heaven's Fury to take it out, which you see there, and we pretty much handle that one there. Shield Glare is also important at higher greater risk because you're able to stun the enemy. And if I had my Bane of the Trap, I would have been able to do fully augmented and back in the armor. We would do. Again, keep in mind it's not in here because I accidentally actually augmented it into my Bombardment Crusader and didn't realize I did it. So now I have to re-augment it. That's okay. That's part of the fun. It'll give me time to Paragon farm offline with this particular armor if I want to. Or I could just use my Bombardment Crusader to do the same thing. So, that's pretty much what you're going to do with the Valor Sader Crusader build. Cast Fist of the Heavens. Make sure you have Akarat's Champion. That was a 5-minute clear time because I'm not fully optimized yet. And pretty much that's what you're going to do. Fist of the Heavens, Heaven's Fury, Akarat's Champion. Keep those up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe, as that is greatly appreciated. And I will see you Monday for the next Diablo 3 video.